Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Hey, I've got a awesome update today. Things are really starting to pick up now. Hey, before I get into that, I want to make sure I announce that tonight, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and I'll put a link to this in the YouTube video comment, doing the Traffic Report tonight, and they're going to have Isaac Kappy. Traffic Report is obviously about ending child pedophilia, child trafficking. They're going to have Isaac Kappy on as a guest at 9 p.m., so make sure you tune in for that. That ought to be a good show. A couple other things. I kind of caught Q on a mistake, but I think maybe he reads my Twitter feed because frozen, huh? That sucks. Because anyway, he had posted a email from Jim Steyer, I think's the guy's name, and it was all in that walnut thread. And one thing they had missed, though, because I'm very familiar with the Podesta emails, was that Podesta's assistant, Aaron Sepp, came back and replied to that whole exchange in the thread. And what she wrote to Just John Podesta was, haha, Jim has no idea what he's talking about. So Aaron and John Podesta, of course, knew that they were talking in pedo code talk with the walnut sauce, which I believe means a child of color. So Aaron and John Podesta knew what they were referring to, but apparently this Jim had not. Now, I posted that up on Twitter, and I looked, and like, I don't know, 30 minutes later, it was no longer on the QAnon.pub. Then we've got Q's really going mainstream. There were tons of Q signs and Q shirts at the Tampa rally last night. I know it was talked about on a morning talk show. I can't recall which one. But there's also, even better, an article in the Washington Post today. And this is from Mr. Isaac Stanley Becker, who I'm going to try to make sure he sees this video. Because first of all, I thank you for shedding light on this. Even though your article, if you want to call it that, your opinion, is riddled with condescending comments and sarcasm. But I'm thanking you because you're bringing awareness here. And actually, you stated a lot of truthful things in your article. So it's worth reading, folks, if you want to check that out on the Washington Post. I don't usually read the Washington Post, but it's also a tool you could use. Even though he writes it in a very demeaning, condescending fashion, he does put quite a bit of facts in there. Now, there's also some falsehoods, which I'm going to point out as well. Here's another thing before I get into that article, though. No, I'll go ahead and get into that article. I'm going to read that article to you, or parts of it anyway. So this is, again, by Isaac Stanley Becker in the Washington Post this morning. It starts out, on Tuesday evening, the dark recesses of the internet lit up with talk of politics. And I'm just like, oh boy, this guy's going to be biased when he talks about the dark recesses of the internet. I'm like, drama queen much there, dude? So then he goes on to talk about Q feeds disciples or bakers, in quotation, scraps of intelligence or breadcrumbs. Now, I definitely have heard, the term breadcrumbs and crumbs for scraps of intelligence that Q's feeding, but I've not heard this baker's term. So maybe I'm wrong there, or maybe he's absolutely incorrect. But that one's new to me. Then he says Trump's cryptic references last year to the calm before the storm for the president's final conquest over elites, globalists, and deep state saboteurs. Then he writes, what Tuesday's rally in Tampa made apparent is that the devotees of these falsehoods. So let me just address that. That's exactly what Trump is going to do, Mr. Becker, and that is conquer the Luciferian pedophile elites, who are also globalists, who also comprise the deep state element within the federal government, who have attempted, their treasonous coup through collusion, through all sorts of illegal activity that's being uncovered. Then he writes, skipping over some stuff, of course, he writes, the video sharing website, talking about YouTube, came under criticism this week for unwittingly becoming a platform for baseless claims first promoted on Twitter and Reddit by QAnon believers that certain Hollywood celebrities are pedophiles. Those are baseless claims, huh, Mr. Stanley Becker? What about Sarah Ruth Ashcraft's testimony that she has put out there publicly that she was purchased by Tom Hanks when she was 13 years old for the purpose of being his sex slave? I would not say that that's baseless, because if you know how the law works, if she was telling falsehoods, Tom Hanks, who obviously is a very wealthy man, would have taken immediate legal action, cease and desist, and probably sue her. But they're not going to do that, because if they sue her and take legal action like that, then they open themselves up to discovery. And that's when you can pry into their lives and reveal them for the pedos they are. So until I see legal action from these people that are accused of being pedophiles, you know, and knowing Hollywood's history, then I'm going to believe that the folks who are coming forward saying they were the victims of these people, I think they're highly credible. Then you got James Gunn, and going back again to his baseless claim, you got James Gunn's tweets, who was the director of the Disney series, movie, whatever they are, the Galactic Dodo Birds. Anyway, one of his tweets was, Eagle snatches kid is what I call it when I get lucky. That's one of James Gunn's tweets. That's baseless, huh, Mr. Stanley Becker, to assume that this guy might be a pedophile? And then he writes, I like it when little boys touch me in my silly place. Now, of course, Mr. Stanley Becker's probably going to say, oh, well, he was just joking. But I think we all know better that normal people that aren't pedophiles don't joke about such things. Pedophiles seem to do it rather regularly, though, on Twitter, because a lot of them have been caught. So it certainly isn't baseless, Mr. Becker. Then moving on, offered up evidence that QAnon, an outgrowth of the Pizzagate conspiracy theory that led a gunman to... Not an outgrowth of Pizzagate. Does QAnon address Pizzagate? Of course he does, because Pizzagate is all part of the bigger pedogate, Luciferian pedophile conspiracy that Q is actually helping to expose. And then I love the part about that led a gunman to open fire in a D.C. restaurant last year. Mr. Becker, it's so obvious to anybody that's been doing research for any amount of time that Mr. Welch, who was the shooter up there, who his sole bullet went through the child pornography server at Comet Pizza. What a nice coincidence there for James Elefantis, huh? Everybody knows that was a false flag, man. That guy was sent up there so that people like you could say that led a gunman to open fire in a D.C. restaurant last year. The only thing that led that gunman to open fire at Comet Pizza was him being paid or some sort of deal being made with that guy, Edgar Welch, to do that. He was not a true Pizzagate researcher. And nobody has ever asserted that there was a pedophile ring being run out of a basement. I've never heard that before. There were rumors that, hey, is there a basement there? And people wanted to see that. And there's actually a basement in the restaurant Buck's next door, where he stores all his tomato sauce. And that's how the basement ever came up. Then he writes about Trump. He said he also asserted without evidence that Obama had wiretapped Trump Towers. No, he asserted that with evidence. And I'm going to tell you, the evidence was taken to him by the director of the NSA, because I remember when Michael Rogers went into Trump Towers, I believe it was on a Thursday. I was like, oh boy, I wonder what he's doing. And he immediately went in and he told Trump that Trump Towers had been wired by bad actors within the U.S. government, and Trump immediately moved his team over to New Jersey. So you need to get your facts straight, Mr. Becker, because obviously you don't know diddly squat. So then you've got... Then he writes, Trump only feigned collusion to create a pretense for the hiring of the special counsel Robert S. Mueller, who is actually working as a white hat or hero. So he's saying this is a conspiracy, actually. I should have read the beginning. He's saying that Robert S. Mueller working for the White Hats is a conspiracy. Well, I'm going to turn your attention to what Q announced last night in a CNBC article posting, where Tony Podesta, Greg Craig, who was a former Obama White House attorney, and Representative Vin Weber, a Republican from Minnesota, were all referred by Mueller to the Southern New York U.S. Attorney's Office for investigation. Last time I checked, Tony Podesta was not on Trump's team, pal, so I think that it's now become pretty obvious that is actually the case with Mueller. Mueller has been on board with Trump the entire time. He's been a ruse. That's been my position for a long time, and that people need to chill out on him and Sessions. Sessions is doing his job. Huber, out in Utah, is busy working away, getting the indictments against the Luciferian pedophiles issued, while Sessions is making sure that he doesn't look like he's on a political witch hunt. It's all very well engineered, folks. That's why we need to trust the plan. This guy also had mentioned in this article that that QAnon followers were racist and anti-Semitism, and I'd like him to point out some specific examples of that. The only thing I could find is he did talk about, as do the Rothschilds, a wealthy Jewish family vilified by the conspiracy theorists as leaders of a satanic cult. They're definitely Luciferians, and they definitely control the central banks, and I guess they're Jewish from what they say. But if that's considered anti-Semitism, then so be it. I guess we're anti-Semites. And then he says, once they mistake the information drip-fed to them by Q, they will usher in a Christian revival. Look, stop trying to paint this as some sort of evangelical thing. It's not. It's regular people, Christians, Muslims. There's people of all walks of life that are behind the QAnon movement. So don't even try to paint it as that, Mr. Becker. That's absolutely false. Then there's a component of QAnon that can be interpreted as a direct call to action, which has already had real-life consequences. Where he talks about the Newport Beach police said recently it was looking into the presence of a man outside Michael Avanti's law office. So what? Somebody went up and took a picture of Michael Avanti's law office, and it already has real-life consequences. You drama queen clown. Anyway, but hey, you should share that article with your friends and tell them, say, yeah, this guy's kind of got a condescending, sarcastic, facetious attitude here, but at the same time, he does have a lot of truthful statements in that article. That's worth, I think, spreading around. And it's just good to see that in the mainstream media. Get people talking about it. Say, oh yeah, it's a conspiracy theory, just like the Gulf of Tonkin, and all sorts of other conspiracy theories that end up becoming true. What else did we have? Something else I wanted to talk about here today. I took notes down because there were a lot of things I wanted to make sure I covered. Well, I think that's about it, folks. But the whole with Mueller coming out with Tony Podesta being investigated, that guy's so dirty. I can't wait till John Podesta's investigated. Those guys are all being investigated by Huber, I think. I think Tony Podesta, this is, I think, for Trump to show, hey, guess what? You've been bamboozled. I described it as Mueller the whole time has been a Trojan horse within their city, within the Luciferian pedophile city, and they didn't even know it. And now the door is open. So anyway, guys, things are picking up, rolling nicely. The speed of things is increasing at a Manafort and Podesta uranium. Yeah, there's so much dirt there, man. I mean, they're just going to have a field day. They could ignore half the crimes and still have these people in, consecutive life sentences 5 times over. So anyways, keep your eyes open, guys. Keep up the good work. We're all making it happen through our thoughts and intentions, and using our co-creative powers. And more people are joining all the time, which is critical. And just keep those positive thoughts up and envision, what it's going to be like in the future when, the truth is revealed. Which, again, I believe is all this is going to be unraveled way before November 11th, which is why Trump scheduled that parade to celebrate the military earlier this year. Is because at that point we're going to realize what an important role that the military generals, white hats, played in the restoration of our republic and exposing these evil people for what they are. So keep up the good work, guys. Keep your chin up. Be happy. It's a great time to be alive and experiencing this. And I love y'all. Thanks. Bye.